Welcome to Entrepreneurship at Rowan, an official production of the award-winning Rowan Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We cover the entrepreneurial pulse of Rowan students, faculty, and alumni, prepared to be Rowan proud.
Welcome to Season 2 of Entrepreneurship at Rowan. I'm your host, Joe Sokolowski. I want to know more about the flourishing entrepreneurial ecosystem in and around Rowan today. I'll be joined by a collection of professionals in the entrepreneurial investment space to hear their experience in the field and help you become a better entrepreneur. Today I'll be joined by Jonathan Hakakian from SoundBoard Venture Fund. SoundBoard is a venture fund that provides itself with a unique investment approach focused on largely unnoticed and untapped entrepreneurial regions in the East and Eastern Midwest. To date, they've invested over $9 million into 48 companies. Thanks for being with us today, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess just to get right into it, SoundBoard stood out to me when I was researching venture funds and angel groups because I thought that the investment space that your team focuses on is pretty unique. So I was curious, what were the primary motivators that brought you and the fund to fruition and offer funding to these regions?
So we launched our fund sort of by accident about 10 years ago. My partner Richard and I came together to figure out how to best support early stage entrepreneurs. And this came from the intersecting path that we had. We both had a passion for supporting and working with startups. I had built a network of early stage entrepreneurs over the previous 5 years. And Richard's been working with entrepreneurs more at the mature stage since 2000. And he has helped them get to their next level of success, whatever that milestone may be, whether it's a revenue goal or an exit or acquisition. So when we came together, we knew that there was this blossoming environment in the New York metro area that needed support, that entrepreneurs were starting businesses, they wanted to get in, they needed funding, they needed advice and advisory services, but we didn't know how to get started yet. So we just started by advising them.
Okay.
And what we found out was that entrepreneurs love this kind of advice, they need it, they crave it. But early stage entrepreneurs don't have expendable cash to really pay for the proper services for advisory. So we started taking equity into some companies. And this was awesome. Again, it really provided a lot of value and a lot of value for the entrepreneurs, value and learnings for us. But ultimately we saw, hey, what we need to get them to do is we need to get them to their next finance, for their first financing round in a lot of cases. And so that's the way that we sort of ended up realizing that we need to launch a fund to have this formal environment, this formal platform to invest in all these new companies that we were seeing. And again, back in that early 2010s, New York was not the big startup ecosystem that it is today.
Yeah, nothing like the Bay Area.
Yeah. I mean, still, the Bay Area is number one.
Yeah.
And it always will be for the foreseeable future. But New York was maybe in the top 10 in the U.S. And now it might even be in the top 10 in the world. But back then, it was almost non-existent when it came to startups. Everything was send it to the West Coast or think of it like a private equity or Wall Street play.
Yeah. And I mean, that takes away business from the East Coast. So, I think it's really important that you guys and other groups have started these funds and angel networks on the East Coast to foster this growth. It's awesome. Can you speak at all how the venture fund and angel investments coexist under the same umbrella at SoundBoard?
We've made a lot of different models to figure out the right investing strategy for here in the North, or the Metro New York region, to be a little more specific. Because when we started, we were focused specifically on our area. And now that we've grown and the ecosystem here has grown, we've started targeting other areas, as you mentioned, East Coast and also the Midwest, these other markets that are not really focused on by other VCs. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of entrepreneurial talent out there, and we're trying to find them and harness their talent and support them through their success. And in doing so, we've launched a fund, we've had an angel network, and now we just launched our second fund about a year ago. We've done a lot of these things to show that we're constantly evolving too. We're constantly getting better and doing different things to support our entrepreneurs and our investors in the right way that makes most sense for them. We actually bring in our investors to be part of our discussion and conversation and due diligence processes. We've got a wide portfolio across industries, and so it really helps that we can tap any or all of our investors to be part of our screening and support system when it comes to reviewing the companies and ultimately supporting them post-investment.
Sure.
I do not have the expertise across industries and neither does Richard. But the fact that we have somebody who knows about manufacturing, we have somebody who knows about parking because he's on the board of a parking company. We have somebody who's on the board of an insurance company. We're able to bring all these different perspectives into the right conversations with the right companies. And this is a cross industry. I'm just giving a small subset.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings up another point I'd like to touch on here. You said you do invest across a wide range of industry, but do you guys like to focus on specific industry types, or do you really focus on entertain anything that comes to you?
We'll entertain just about anything.
Okay.
There are some industries that we really don't invest in because it doesn't make sense for us. The easiest ones to say are biotech and pharma. Those are great industries, but you really need the right investors with the right approach and right understanding. Similarly, with direct to consumer, most of those companies, they're great companies with a lot of potential, but you need the right investor that can support the multiple financing rounds for marketing purposes and brand building. And that's not us. We're a relatively small, or smaller, I should say, venture investor in the ecosystem. So we like B2B companies that are leveraging technology instead of inventing it. Most of the opportunities that we've invested in have been execution plays where the entrepreneurs the co-founders have built a beta or an alpha product, they've tested out in the market, and now they're coming out to expand on it or update it based on customer feedback. And really becomes less of an R&D play and more of an execution. Let's get to market and grow as fast.
I know our primary audience here at Rowan is our entrepreneurship community, and many of them have their own startups and they're looking to find investments themselves. So could you touch on some of the investments that SoundBoard looks to make?
Our typical investment size, our target is actually $250,000 in the seed to Series A round.
Okay.
We stay very disciplined that we want to be between the 5 million to 10, 12 million pre-money valuations. We really don't go much above that, and below that, it would be rare. One of the things that we do, and this really goes back to the thesis I spoke about, is we put about half of it up front upon commitment into the company, and the other half, we set some milestones for the entrepreneur to hit, and then we deliver on that second tranche. Because again, we're trying to push the envelope when it comes to execution-based investing. We want to make sure that the entrepreneurs see that we're committed by putting in that first check, but that we also can start seeing some results as we get to know the company.
Yeah, I think that SoundBoard has a very intuitive value proposition that it offers to entrepreneurs. Can you talk about how you go about selecting a liaison, advisor, or board member for a company and how it helps that investment?
It's always a discussion with the entrepreneur and the founding team to make sure that whoever represents SoundBoard on the board or as an advisor is the right fit for the company, for the people, for the entrepreneur and the founders, and for us at SoundBoard. It's got to be the right fit because as a venture investor, either a VC or an angel, we are trusting that the team knows what they're doing. We are trusting that they're the right leaders for the company and the industry. So we're not in a position where I want to take over the company. We've got enough going on. We're building our own business. So it's got to be the right person from SoundBoard that has the skill set, the network, the experience, and the time to support the company the way that it needs to be. So the conversation that I have with the entrepreneur is towards the end of diligence. Now, at this point in time, they've gotten to meet 5 and 8 members of SoundBoard, 5 or 8 of our investors. And we have this conversation that says, you've gotten to know us over several weeks or a couple months' time sometimes. Who makes sense to be the liaison and what role do you see them playing? At minimum, we said that it's a monthly call for 45 minutes to an hour for the next 18 months. Because my goal is that we get them to the next series of milestones, that next big event, whether that's Series A, Series B, profitability, break even, whatever it could be. We want to just make sure that we have that ear into the company to support them through that, and also so that we're not blindsided by when things don't go right. Mm-hmm. And more often than not in startups, things are not going to go according to plan.
Oh, definitely.
So what's important about playing that role is not just being supportive, but being the shoulder to lean on, the somebody to talk to when things don't go according to plan, somebody to just bounce ideas off of, to understand like, okay, this client didn't happen, but I have 3 more. How can I readjust the presentation to close the sale? And just having that cadence set in advance, having that understanding that this is what we can provide, this is what we can do, this is how we're going to work with you, really helps the entrepreneurs, because they come to look forward to it in a lot of ways, and also leverage it to what the business is about. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
I think I personally have seen that relationship, like you guys say, your strive to make that relationship can be a make or break move for a startup. So it's awesome to hear that kind of, I guess you'd almost call it a matchmaking process that you guys offer.
It is. And, I think what often gets lost in the startup world is that, yes, we're investing in companies, but ultimately it's about the people. The entrepreneurs are always so stressed. They've got so much on their plate. They're thinking about so many things that we have to bring back that human element. We have to talk to them like they're people who have struggles, and they've got other things going on in their lives than just working 24/7 for this startup. So just adding that level of compassion and just letting them know we can be flexible, I think goes a long way with them.
Could you talk about what your screening process looks like when you're looking for companies to invest in?
There are a couple different aspects to our screening process. Obviously, we look at the business model, the product, the tech, the opportunity. That's a given, and that's pretty standard. We look into competition very heavily. And competition is not just who else is doing this, who else is starting this, but it really goes to the core of what the client's problem is and understanding what's going to cause them to change their behavior to purchase this new product or service. So understanding that mindset of the customer is really important. However, the bulk of our due diligence is spent on understanding the team dynamics. And we do this in 2 ways. In pre-COVID times, we would have a full day session with the entrepreneur to really hash through it, understand them. We do a site visit if they had an office that was worth seeing as well. Really getting to know the team just by forcing ourselves into their space and forcing them into ours and just talking through difficult topics. In this new post-COVID world where most things are on Zoom, we've split these meetings up into 3 or 4 meetings where we're really trying to test the entrepreneur's understanding of the market, understanding of the future, and really getting their vision out, and understanding how they handle different environments, different stress points, different questions. And I use the word test, but it's not an exam kind of thing. It's just to understand what makes them tick. But it's compounded by, we actually run them through a series of assessments. So these are personality and character assessments. One of them is pretty well known, called DISC, D-I-S-C.
Okay.
And my partner Richard has compiled several of them into one that will then give the individual's characteristics and personality profiles and their work style, but it'll also give it for the whole team. So what's really interesting is not only do we know that, this person, how they work, how they operate, where they're best at as part of a team, and then person B and person C, it will tell us as a group what's really exceptional about them, where their blind spots are, and how they work together as a unit. And so now we have the gut check that we get by experiencing and spending time with the entrepreneur and the founding team, and the leadership team, I should really say. Mm-hmm. We have this data set provided by third-party analytics that will validate or invalidate our gut. So now we have the objective and subjective data points to really look at and talk to.
So then I'm assuming after that's done and it all works out, then you go speak further into what kind of investment you are looking to make with that company. And correct. When you're doing that, is there a typical amount of investors that typically go in on a deal, or is it a next in line kind of situation? How does that work?
So we do invest as a fund. So everybody's invested into everything that we've gone into. And it depends on the valuation. It depends on timing. It depends on when we think their next fundraise will be, that we would really balance out how much we're going to invest in that company at that point in time.
Is there anything new and exciting you have planned over at SoundBoard?
We've always got things growing and brewing here. In our second fund, we've made 6 investments so far, and I expect over the next 60, 90 days, we'll probably be invested in about 3 more companies.
Okay.
So stay tuned for that.
Nice. Yeah, that's very exciting. I'm curious, have you seen things heat up post-COVID, or has it always been consistent, or even more companies coming in during COVID?
My anticipation is that this year is going to be a very big year for seed and Series A companies coming out looking for funding. And when we backtrack to what's happened, March of 2020 was the shutdown. People were home. Either they were laid off, or a lot of people were bored, or really smart people were also just starting to look for solutions to challenges they were having. They started creating those companies around September of 2020, give or take a little bit.
Okay.
So they, give 3-4 months of time for them to figure out how to launch a company, how to start, what problems to start out. 12 to 18 months after that is when they'd be raising their seed rounds off.
Okay.
Because it usually takes that long for them to get off the ground, build the beta, talk to clients, get out there, do a pre-seed round, get a little bit of traction. So if you look at the timeline from September of 2020 to early 2022, which is where we are right now in that first half still, that's when they're coming out for seed.
You two mentioned that used to do a lot more things in person pre-COVID. I know a lot of other groups I've talked to said they're excited to get more of that in-person going. Do you guys have any plans with stuff like that?
Most likely by the end of the year, we'll start hosting our investor meetings hybrid. Virtual first, in-person second, has really changed the dynamic for us as a firm, and I think for the entire industry, because there's a lot more is acceptable now that wasn't several years ago. It's totally normal now to invest in a company where you've never physically met the founders or the team, where it was unheard of 3-4 years.
I think that the hybrid environment is just as exciting because it offers that flexibility and you can see so much more. But yeah, that's awesome. I'd love to see it, and I can't wait to see what you guys have planned. Last question I want to ask, I like to ask everyone, how can the Rowan University community get involved and apply with SoundBoard?
We are constantly looking to grow and expand our network and our reach, especially in our communities here. So Rowan, both as a university and as an entrepreneurial community, stay in touch with us. Let us know how we can support your entrepreneurial endeavors out there and coming out of Rowan. While we focus on seed and pre-A, we are always willing to connect with, and spend a little bit of time with companies that are too early for us, but we want to get to know the right people, because eventually the right people are going to build businesses and come out for a fundraise that does hit.
I know, personally speaking, I see that you guys have invested in Tassel, and I believe the owner of that company is a Rowan alum, so I know that the network is strong already, and hopefully it'll keep to continue growing. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for telling us about yourself and about SoundBoard, and thanks for coming out today. To recap, SoundBoard Ventures is a venture fund looking for investment in the East and Eastern Midwest, primarily in overlooked communities. They've invested over $9 million into 48 companies to date. You can learn more about Jonathan and the organization at soundboardventurefund.com.
Thank you for listening. Rowan is proud to be an official knowledge hub of the International Council for Small Business. Our AACSB award-winning entrepreneurship programs challenge students to solve real problems in bold and impactful ways. If you're interested in supporting entrepreneurship at Rowan, or want to get more involved by hiring an intern, speaking to a class, or being featured as a case study, contact us at rcie@rowan.edu.